Hi, I'm here with Semih Energin. He's a software engineer at Meta, and I'm here to interview him about his job. So just tell me a little bit about your current job.
Of course. Hello, I'm Semih. I'm a software engineer at Meta. Been at the company for about 5 years. Been in the industry, give or take 15 years, I guess. Then who's counting? Um, yeah, I'm a software engineer at Meta, and I work on variables, quote unquote, which these days for us it means AI devices, AR devices, however you want to cut it. As a software engineer, I used to work on the research end of things, and our overall task responsibility aim was to quote unquote supercharge researchers, meaning building them tools and capabilities so that they can conduct researches in this domain. Now I'm more product focused, and I'm helping teams to essentially figure out the roadmaps for their next gen devices.
What's an average day on the job look like for you?
It's interesting. These days, it is a lot of meetings usually. Well, yes. The I would say that about 60-70% of my current job is to either attend meetings or follow up with meetings or document and essentially establish some sort of a ground understanding across teams. Um, Previous cycles, I think in following cycles, it's going to be way more execution focused. So what it will hopefully turn into is that it'll mean that about 10-20% of meetings, and the rest is going to be very execution focused, where we essentially open up your VS Code or whatever, and just start writing the code itself. One thing that is common in large corporations, especially true in Meta, is that communication is key, and then your individuals are asked to handle their own communications and goals themselves, which usually just means that you really need to be in touch with your peers all the time. So I'm giving about like 10% of my time to that, just overall basal communication time spent.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is your favorite part about your job?
I think it's the learning aspect of it. The one thing I really like about my current setup I'm working at in my current company is that I tend to work with individuals who know way more than I do, and in areas that they have excelled at over their lifetimes, and I get a glimpse of that and have like essentially can have the luxury of seeing the large picture, amongst other things. So essentially, learning of things through others and through others' experience and expertise is honestly the favorite part of my job.
All right. And if you had to say, what would be your least favorite part?
It's definitely the time aspect of it. I guess lot to be done. It's like so. It's like working with ambitious, working with high agency, ambitious people. Put you in that seat, and of course that is a demanding thing. Like so, that has a tax on your time and on your essentially on has stress aspect to it too. But it's just a matter of time, really. So you at times you, no pun intended, often you need to give a lot to get results and to push things forward and to keep up, which essentially like it is a trade off. So that's the I wouldn't say it is unnecessary. I don't know much of a way to call it in something that can be improved, because you need to give to get back. But of course, it's a negative.
Yeah. And then going back, your college, like, what do you have a major in, and like, how do you like get into that?
Oh, that's interesting. So I think in terms of academics and in terms of what needs to be studied, what I have done is what's been very standard as like essentially the most proven way to kind of do what you do. I've studied computer science. In Turkey is like as an undergrad, which is like a computer science, computer engineering is a bit of a mix, which is not necessarily the case here. And I did my master's here. I did not pursue a PhD and join, I guess, workforce right after. I think essentially like this is the gold standard path. I would say what I would have done differently if I could time travel and etc. is that I was more academics focused and essentially like curriculum focused, and I wouldn't say I was under the impression, but I would have been more like a builder focus or like get stuff done or like action focus. That's what I would have changed. One important thing that I realized is that a lot of folks who have exposed themselves to these kinds of stuff earlier than college, in high school, etc., I think they have a larger and they have a better understanding of things and more in-depth understanding of things. So early exposure and focus on actually building things, actual results versus curriculum. I think those are two important suggestions that I would give.
Mhm. And like going into college, did you know like computer science is what I want to do with my life? Like this is 100% what I'm doing?
Yes, with a caveat. Yes, because as a I don't like the term, but as I would have called myself, or as a nerd, that felt like the most natural thing for me to learn most about, learn best about. But I would say that I would have a not a sheltered upbringing, but like a sheltered understanding of the world and how this field relates to rest of the world. I was very focused on games, for example, and I sought opportunities and learnings as a game developer first and foremost. My first gig out of school was to do game development, and I think that's I wouldn't that more. It is a balancing, I guess. That gives like having that dedicated focus and passion is motivating, but it also curbs your understanding and learning opportunities.
Can you talk a little bit more about that first job?
Of course, that was that was in Amazon within Amazon Game Studios. I started that gig in 2013. Joined the ranks of the game studio as a gameplay engineer, and we built a whole bunch of unreleased games, which is often the case in game studios. You just keep prototyping, and a couple of finished games. That was a good. That was a great environment. I think it was like I got lucky because that was the exact kind of thing that I needed at the time because supported my visa status and also large corporations tend to pay well, but it was also like it was a game development and opportunity, which doesn't come as often. But it also exposed me to working with a lot of artists and designers, so it was a very cross-functional environment. Was a great environment. It had all the pros and cons of game development.
And could you talk a little bit about your role on your team and kind of what an entry level position looks like there?
Of course. So the what it looked like was that was the essentially shortly after I joined, after some initial, I guess, some bootstrapping and some onboarding tasks, I quickly partnered with a designer and a couple of artists, and to essentially keep iterating prototypes. One thing that I appreciated, especially later in life, is that there was a good amount of agency that was bestowed upon me. So I essentially had the freedom to come up with gameplay concepts and kind of push for ideas and just keep iterating on, not iterating, but keep demoing different ideas pretty much every 2 weeks or so. That was a pretty good gig. And essentially, so yeah, it was the practically what it looked like was I was making games in Unity while collaborating with the artists and tech and designers.
All right. And then after that job, what was your next position?
My next position, so my master's was focused on human computer interactions in augmented reality, virtual reality. Most of the equipment in the lab was from the 90s, and often we would essentially talk in the lab about like how this is a fool's errand and no one's going to build the dream device that we had. Funny to me was that essentially some people that I was conversing were in the know, and when it became public, I have learned about HoloLens. It was essentially Microsoft's AR device, and it essentially became the holy grail. I was like, well, someone was building this actually, so I essentially actively tried to work on HoloLens at some capacity and found a role that was doing prototypes and games and experiences for the device at Microsoft, and I joined that team, which was a very natural transfer of my skills because I was already focused on gameplay and like working with artists, designers, and etc. So it was and skill set was an immediate match. And as I essentially worked starting closer to the device, I had to upskill myself to learn, essentially get out of the gaming focus or like gaming track, but to do more general programming, more enterprise app development, more systems programming and such. And at there, I was at Microsoft for about 5 years, worked at a similar capacity for about 4 years.
And then was your next job Meta, or did you have other?
I had a short stint at Mojang,
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft company. I was working on Minecraft, and I was recommended to the job by a peer who moved from then my team to this team. Was recommended to this, and I joined there as well before I moved to Meta, and was mostly working on the engine. Honestly, more boring aspects of the engine. My job then had very nothing to do with the gameplay or the game itself. It was more about how to integrate the game to different platforms. In my case, more specifically Android.
And do you have any like parting advice for someone pursuing like a career in STEM?
Yes, I would say that building is the key. Like essentially, like being having a lot of folks are in it because they born into internet and computers, and then they essentially their experience of the world goes through computer experiences often, and that the feeling of the passion of it does not transfer at all. And I think one should actually try to put themselves in a builder mode, and then they should understand that unless they build themselves, unless one builds one thing themselves with their hands, and this is a field where you can just build something out of thin air, uh, they're gonna have a hard time, and they are losing a lot of opportunities. So again, my advice is to build as early as possible, as much as possible, uh, at whatever capacity.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Of course.